I have noticed that there are some coaches and healers and service providers who don't believe in blocks. And then there are some coaches and healers and service providers who do believe in blocks. I want to share my perspective and how I see blocks show up for people because there is a narrative online that I think, can get a little bit confusing. Welcome to the Aligned and Magnetic Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Ashley, intuitive business coach certified by the International Coaching Federation, and they call me the money mindset and manifestation queen. I take a spiritual and practical approach that's backed by neuroscience to help you make your vision a reality, but more importantly, doing it in a way that lights you the fuck up. If you're ready to create an aligned, magnetic, and profitable business so you can live a life and do the work you are absolutely in love with, you're in the right place. Get ready to hear the powerful questions and raw lessons that you need to create success your way. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Hey, love. Welcome back to another episode of the Aligned and Magnetic Podcast. So today, I want to talk to you about blocks. Something that I read on Threads, it's been a while, but I've been thinking about this thread for a while now, is you don't have a block unless you believe you have a block, right? And while I believe that this is true to some extent, I want to share with you how blocks work for me in my life and for my clients. So I do believe in blocks, and I believe in blocks because I believe that our experience and our thought processes and the way in which we make decisions comes from how we have learned to be, exist, make decisions in life. And our brain can sometimes create stories and fear and reasons or excuses to not do the thing that you know you have to do. Sometimes these are very conscious. Like sometimes you're just like, man, I don't know if I want to talk about that because I might get canceled. And sometimes there's actually something that's underlying that you don't even know is there. And it is maybe something like, for example, if something feels too complicated for me, I'll avoid the shit out of it because I don't like feeling like I'm in a tizzy or something's like overwhelming or chaotic. If it feels too big, I go into fight, flight, or freeze, right? So that right there can be a block. Sometimes it's even in our pricing. Like I notice a lot of coaches and service providers sometimes will maybe charge less money for their services because they're just building their confidence. But then once they get to a certain level, and they haven't raised their pricing, they start to feel like they're not fully compensated for their work. And so they'll hold themselves back from talking about their thing or their offer because they don't want to actually fill that offer because they're not being properly compensated for it. So our brain can create all of these different pathways or reasons. And if we're not aware, if we're not maybe having conversations about it, or you're not taking the time to ask yourself deeper questions, which if you're not, I don't blame you. We're not really taught how to navigate this as human beings. Then it's really easy to actually avoid reaching your next level or doing the thing that you know you have to do because you've got maybe a script or a pattern running in the back of your mind. Now, people approach blocks differently. I have some colleagues and clients even that approach blocks from a energy perspective, and they work solely on the energetics. You don't really have to go into depth on why this thing came here to be or how that thing is like affecting your life and blah, blah, blah. So, and I think that's valid. What has worked really well for me is having a space to talk through and to process whatever is holding me back so that I can actually become more aware of when that thing shows up again in the future. And I say this because there are some people who believe that, oh, once you heal the thing, then it's never going to show up again. And I honestly don't know if I believe in that. Maybe it's true, but I have overcome a lot of things in my life and I have reprogrammed or shifted the way in which I see something. I have felt like the most confident person, and then I have been knocked back down, even though I built that confidence on a very solid foundation. It wasn't just like fake confidence. So I don't know if I necessarily believe that blocks can be banished for good, but I do believe and know what has worked for me. And that has been having a reflective practice and definitely having a space where you can talk through these scenarios and situations, whether that's with your partner, whether that's with your best friend, whether it's with a coach or a therapist, like whatever modality works best for you. I find it's really helpful to have people who can reflect back to you without judgment or without putting in their 2 cents or try to solve your problem. I find that this is like probably one of the hardest things in finding someone who can support you, is that a lot of people don't know how to listen without solving problems. And again, this isn't like shade on that person. It's just that like I used to be that person. I used to not be able to hold space for people until I learned how to coach, and how beneficial it is to actually just sit and listen to someone without having to solve their problem. Okay, so now to get into this episode, because I want to actually highlight some of the blocks or fears that might be holding you back from reaching your next level in business. And I just want to say, if any of this resonates with you today and you feel like somebody you know could benefit from this episode, I would love it if you shared the episode with them. I'm really trying to increase my listenership of the Aligned and Magnetic podcast. And I actually just had a conversation today with my coaching network that I'm involved with. And I was like, man, I really just want to grow my podcast without adding a bunch of extra things that I have to do. And someone gave me this idea of like, why don't you just ask your listeners to share if it resonated and if they found value in it? And I was like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. So if you find value in this episode, I would be so honored and grateful if you did share it with somebody that you think could benefit, or even if you wanted to share it with your email list, that would be so amazing. And definitely tag me in it if you share it on Instagram. I will reshare. So here are some of the top things that come up for me as a coach and as an entrepreneur and my clients as well. So these are conversations that I've had very recently. They are not old conversations, and I think that they can happen at any level. So the first mindset block that can be holding you back is fear of being canceled or criticized. Now, this might be something that is top of mind for you, or it might be something that's still lingering subconsciously and you're not fully aware of it yet. I have definitely been navigating this myself as well, with everything that I've gone through over the last couple of years, where my life felt like it was in shambles, but yet I was like the happiest I've ever been. You can listen to all of what I went through in the first couple episodes of season 2 and hear more about that. But definitely, I have to say that the narrative around the coaching industry lately has me feeling scared to share my true thoughts online, because I don't want to get canceled. I don't want people to take something out of context. I am afraid of being just like every other bad coach that's getting shit on right now. And this is a whole other conversation that we can have at a later time. If you would like to have this kind of conversation, then please let me know. Either send me a DM right now before you forget on Instagram and say, hey, I would love to have a conversation about the coaching industry. I would love to chat more with you about what you're experiencing and just see how I can support and offer some of my own perspectives. But fear of being canceled and criticized is a huge one. And this isn't just something that's recent. I experienced this right when I was beginning my business. My clients experienced it right when they were beginning their business. They experience it even now, like being 3 years in. I'm experiencing it now being 6 years in, you know? So this isn't something that really goes away. It is something that can be maybe temporarily go away, but I find that these things can resurface as we evolve and as new things come to light and as we go through life and experience different things. And so something that is actually beneficial. Let's talk about the benefits of this fear, right? Because I think that this fear is forcing us to do our best work possible. Now, of course, it requires you to have your finger on the pulse around whether this is something that's holding you back or whether your higher self is like, bitch, you can step it up, like you can be better. And I say this because there are a lot of lazy people out there. And I don't say this to be rude, okay? I think that I have even experienced this where I'm just like, oh, I just need to get something out there. And it's a tricky conversation. I'm not like, I don't want you to feel bad if you do fall into this category because it can be really challenging to keep up online, right? There's always things that are changing. We are always evolving as entrepreneurs and as individuals. And it can feel really difficult to keep up with, posting every day and doing this and doing that, especially some of my clients have full-time jobs. Like there's no way that they're able to keep up with all of the possible things that they have to do. And so we have to be really selective. But also, I believe that we can create systems for ourselves that make it easier to show up frequently and consistently without reinventing the wheel every single time. So back to this fear of being canceled or criticized, I think in a sense, if you can look at it like, am I doing my best work? Am I putting my best self out there and using it to check in with yourself? And is this good enough, right? So Brooke Castillo, actually from the Life School podcast, and I know that anyway, we won't go into all of the coaching industry stuff that I see on a daily basis now, but something that I do appreciate about her work or her maybe thought process is putting out B+ content instead of or B- content instead of A+ content, right? And I think that this is actually really great because if we are always trying to put out A+, we are never really getting anywhere. Now, the caveat to this is I personally pull out all the stops for my clients. I don't believe in giving your clients a bad experience. I will put my clients before my own business. And I think that this can be good. And it can also be bad because then I tend to put a lot of my energy toward my clients versus myself. And I do check in with myself and say, okay, maybe today we prioritize your business needs first. But if something is coming up with a client that does require my time and attention, I will put that before my own stuff. And a great example of this is when I travel, I do put my client work before my own work because I have very limited capacity when I travel. So I make sure that my client needs are met before anything else. And I usually try to bulk create content or whatever if I can. It's not always possible before I leave so that I do have stuff that is going out while I'm traveling. So a little rampage there, a little rant, maybe not super on topic, but all of that to say is like, how can you use your fear of being canceled or criticized to just check in with yourself? And I'm not saying to check in with yourself and buy into that fear. I'm not saying to check in with yourself and buy into that doubt. I'm just saying, are you doing your best? I'm currently obsessed with Billie Eilish right now and her new album. And I actually watched her and her brother's interview, and they mentioned something that sometimes we put stuff out and it's very ego driven. It's very, oh yeah, that shit's great. That shit's amazing. But we're not actually asking ourselves, am I doing my absolute best here? Is this the best possible work that I can give to my audience? And I think that we need to be asking ourselves that question a little bit more often, because I do believe that we are here to be our best selves and that we are here to provide a really great experience. And I also believe that when we do provide a really great experience, that replicates tenfold in the future. That goes toward, the law of karmic something, whatever. It'll come back to you, right? When you give your clients and the people in your community value and really great content, really great ideas, maybe whatever it is that you are in, when you give to your audience and community, that will come back to you. A lot of people are so focused on hustling and getting money, and I get that. I understand that. And also a really big part of business is giving for free and giving without attachment and just building those relationships, collaborating with people and loving up on people without any expectation of receiving financial investment from them in the future. And I do a lot of that in my business. So fear of being canceled, criticized, definitely check in with yourself. Am I doing my absolute best? Something that I actually have used, sorry, I'm like trying to play with my tone and my voice. I notice that I start to yell. I'm a very loud talker. And I think when I have a microphone, like I don't have to talk so loud. Like I could talk like this and just be like, that could be fine. You know what I mean? And it actually usually sounds better because my voice gets really, okay. Anyway, I digress. Something that has helped me with this fear of being canceled, criticized, there are two things. So the first thing, people are, okay, there are some people in this world that are very unhappy with their lives. And there are some people that have very different circumstances than our own. And life is not fair. And that's a thing. And sometimes that can come out in criticism or hateful comments. And I think that is just kind of part of life. And if you are choosing to have an online business and put yourself out there in different mediums, you are going to naturally open yourself up to that. So I think part of navigating this is developing a confidence within yourself that is unshakable and really rooting into what you believe to be true. Because when you believe in what you are talking about, when you believe in what you are sharing, what you are teaching, what you are doing, then nobody can really, like, sure, people can challenge that and like question that, but it comes from a really deeply rooted place within you instead of just like something that can easily be challenged, like maybe like an idea on something or like, I don't know, something surface level. Do you know what I mean? So sharing your truth and your beliefs and sharing from a place of, no, this is true for me, is so much more powerful than sharing from a place of, oh, I don't know, but I just want to put this out there because people might want it and I have to post content every day, so I'm just going to post this. So I think, and this is something that I do with my clients, like I spend a lot of time asking them, like, well, what do you believe in? What is true for you, right? And really getting into the roots of their story and their value system and their beliefs and creating content from that solid foundation. So like when we build a solid foundation in business, we're not just building a foundation that is practical, we're also building confidence and leadership and a solid foundation in who you are, because that is such a big part of running a business online, right? Especially if you like are the personal brand, if you are the one that's leading that business forward. If you have a business where other people like do the shit for you and you don't have to be super like online, then that's really great for you. Although I have also had many conversations with owners like that who do want to explore, what are my beliefs and what am I willing to share with people and what am I just not willing to put out there. So I think when we root into that knowing, that deep knowing within yourself, and if you don't know what that is yet, that's okay. I would actually invite you to download or sign up for my Own Your Intuition workshop, because this is going to start that process. I walk you through, I believe it's 5 or 6 different parts, and each part is going to walk you through the questions that you need to be asking yourself to connect, to look at yourself, to look within rather than looking outside all the time, right? So I think something that actually, now that we're on that topic, something that I believe holds a lot of people back is that they're looking for that outside external validation, and they want this approval from other people, and they want to be liked, and they want to be, accepted and all of that jazz. And while yes, that is so valid, like it's not pleasant for anybody to deal with criticism. It's not pleasant for anyone to deal with being canceled online. It's not pleasant dealing with DMs from creepy guys. It's not pleasant to deal with it, but also I think when we can create a sense of internal validation and I accept me for me and I've got me and I trust me and this is what I believe in. And no one can really shake that belief within me because it is something that is core to who I am. Then that is going to help you so much more. So, shifting the mirror inward to look inward versus constantly looking outside. And it's easy to look outside of yourself because it's how we've been trained to be in society with social media and just all of these other things. And it's a practice to come back within. Like, even though I teach on this, come back and listen to your intuition. It's not something that necessarily comes naturally. It's something I've really had to work on and that I continue to work on. And that does work really well when I could practice the thing. But it is not something that is natural. Like, we are taught to compare ourselves. And if you look back, I believe in evolution. If you look back, evolutionarily speaking, if you believe that we come from monkeys, and actually, like, I don't even know if we come from monkeys, to be honest. I don't know what I believe around that. I'm very open-minded, so I can hold space for a lot of different beliefs at the exact same time. But let's just look and compare ourselves to animals for a second, right? Like, they want to be included in a pack. They get so nervous when there's a dog that like just doesn't like them or when they're being picked on and all of that jazz. I have 3 dogs, so I observe their behaviors and all of that. But our brains are programmed to keep us safe and keep us protected. And there is a very natural instinct within us that does want to be accepted, that doesn't want to be alienated or excluded from the group, right? And that's okay. We can hold space for that and accept that part of ourselves, but we don't need to make decisions from that part of ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So I think something that's really helpful here is learning how to become aware of that story and learning how to navigate that conversation with yourself, because it's not something that's one and done, right? It's going to continue to come up over time. And this is something that I do help my clients with, by the way. So, something else that helps with fear of being criticized or canceled is being really open to feedback and criticism. When I first started my business, I just wanted to be the best that I could be. I wanted everything to be perfect, and I hated receiving feedback. I remember being in my coaching academy course and for my coach certification, and I would not even listen to the feedback. I would get so defensive because I wanted to be perfect. And a lot of this comes from, I think, my upbringing, but I really had to learn how to hold space for myself and shift my perspective. It was almost like every single time I heard a criticism, I would hyper fixate, and it wasn't even a criticism. We call it growing edge. So in coaching, we give really amazing, like glowing feedback around the things that we do really well, because typically people don't do that, right? They focus on the areas for improvement. So we focus on what people do really well, and then we give one piece of growing edge feedback that they can focus on and implement for future. Well, my brain, being the perfectionist that I am, would only focus on the growing edge feedback and would hyper criticize myself for that and be like, oh, that's so stupid. Oh, like whatever. Or, gotta love the ego. Or I would be like, oh, I did that. I don't know what they're talking about, right? So I was very not available for feedback. My ego would get super bruised, and I had to go through definitely the process of learning how to be open to feedback and knowing that just because I'm receiving feedback doesn't mean that the rest of what I do is bad. I think that is a very interesting trick that our brain can play on us, that just because we did one thing wrong, that everything else, it just negates everything else. It's what? Like, that is not the intention of feedback whatsoever. So definitely giving yourself a lot of love and grace and recognizing yourself. If other people aren't recognizing you for you, definitely recognizing yourself for all the good that you do, and then being open to and literally taking the initiative to ask for open feedback. Now, I can't force my clients to give me feedback. all I can do is create a safe space and let them know that I am open to feedback. I am open to hearing what they have to say. If they are really not loving something that I'm doing, or if they feel a certain way about something that I'm doing as a coach, then I like to tell them, like, hey, I am open to receiving feedback. Whether they actually provide that or not is completely up to them. I know that can also be a thing for people, that they're scared to provide feedback, but I do my best to really offer that if they ever feel like they need to just put something out on the table and talk about it. But I think if we can start to create and normalize the fact that we can't possibly be perfect. And this is something that's really has been helpful for me, is that we can't possibly be perfect. We're always learning and growing. And I think the more grace we can give ourselves and really lean into the journey of the learner and being like super open and honest about that, I think the better off we are. So something that I've done several times in my business and that is super effective is I'll be like, hey, I'm trying on this new thing. Bear with me. If it feels uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but like, this is what I'm doing. And that just relieves so much pressure off of me when I'm trying something new or when I'm practicing something. And I find people are so focused on having their shit together and being the authority figure. And like when you're just starting out, you can take off that pressure and you can actually just lean into, hey, I'm new at this. Let me try this on. You know what I mean? There's something so beautiful about that beginning journey that I think so many entrepreneurs, including myself, until I stopped doing this, just shy away from, because they want to be seen as put together. And like, bitch, like nobody's put together. Okay. Nobody's put together. And I think the more that we can be open and vulnerable about that, the better out we all are, because it's showing our clients that like, hey, I don't have everything put together. This might feel messy and clunky, and I'm also open to feedback. And it also gives them then permission to share with you because you're putting it out on the table and you're laying your cards out. Now, that might not be everyone's modus operandi, and that is totally okay. This is just something that's worked really well for me that I want to invite you to do. So, something else to help with fear of being canceled or criticized is knowing when to tune it out. So, there are a lot of something that we need to understand here is there are a lot of different experiences out there in the world. Every single person on this planet is living in a different experience. My experience is different than your experience, and it's different than every single human being on this planet Earth. You can put 1,000 people into a room with the best possible speaker and give the best fucking presentation of your life. And I can guarantee you that every single person in that room is going to interpret that presentation differently. And some people are going to freaking love that shit, and some people might hate it. And I believe that not everyone is going to resonate with our work, and that's okay. Everybody's needs are different. Everybody has the right to experience something different, and everyone has the right to not love everything that we put out there. So knowing when to tune out the noise and knowing when something just doesn't apply to you. I know that a lot of people have these fears of being canceled, but then when they actually look at what they're wanting to put out there, they're like, oh, why would I even be canceled for that? So sometimes our brain will just create these fears without any actual like reasoning. And so it's important to actually look at that fear and then also look at what it is that you're actually trying to do and assess for yourself, not let that fear overtake you and not let that fear block you or stop you from moving forward, but really just looking at, okay, this is something that I'm afraid of. And also like, here's what I'm trying to do. Does this fear actually have merit, or is it just coming out of nowhere for no reason? I honestly think this fear of being canceled and criticized is probably one of the most deeply rooted fears, because another fear that I have definitely gone through myself and that I've worked with my clients on is the fear of rejection. So when you get on a sales call and you put all this energy forth and you present your pricing and then they're like, oh, I can't afford that. This fear is interesting because in a sense, like as someone who's been in business for 6 years, I'm like, okay, so what, right? Like, what's the problem? If they can't afford it, sometimes coaches will teach you to overcome obstacles. And while I do believe that it's important to hold space if your client wants to go there or your future client wants to go there, and talk about why they can't afford it, if that's a conversation that you actually want to have, I think it's important more so to learn how to have sales conversations with the right people. So if somebody can't afford your offering, I think that can be, if you're getting a lot of I can't afford it, then that's probably something to do with your messaging or the way that you are positioning yourself online. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. But fear of rejection, I get that. And also, I think that something that has, I believe, I'm trying to shift my speech from I think, because it's not just I think. What I believe to be true and what I've experienced is that when you can stop making it about you, and this is going to sound super blunt, and I'm sorry, but stop making it about yourself, okay? It is not about you and your money goals and your next client and like reaching your goals. This is about the person that's in front of you. And I think that when we can take a more heart-centered and client-focused approach to sales, fear of rejection doesn't really matter, because it's always about what's in service to the person that's in front of you. If they can't afford the thing that you're selling, or they maybe don't resonate with the thing that you're selling, then okay, like, how else can I support this person that's in front of me? Do I have a lower cost offering to provide? Do I have a freebie that I can send their way to help them, right? This is a topic, like fear of rejection is a topic that I think really roots into that confidence, that self-confidence, and that leadership, and the ability to let go of your ego and to just really focus on the person that's in front of you and provide them with a lot of value and provide them with the best experience possible. Another fear that I know a lot of people experience, especially us more feminine beings, is the fear of being locked in and having a strict schedule and having to be consistent and losing our freedom. Now, this is an interesting fear to have, because if we don't put in any work, then are we really free? Because then we are just continuing to live the life that we know deep in our hearts that we don't actually want to be living, or we're just like running away from the thing that we know we need to be doing, and we're ultimately not fulfilled and satisfied. If you have something on your heart that you know you need to be sharing with people, that you know that you need to be putting out there in the world, but you're constantly avoiding that thing, then are you really free? Because your mind is constantly being occupied by the thing that you know you need to do. And then you probably end up harping on yourself, being like, oh, I know I need to do this thing. Oh, I said I was going to do this thing. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And so if I were in this place, I would either just let that thing go, or I would ask myself, like, okay, what is it really going to take for me to show up for the thing? And also, like, y'all can create your business in however the fuck you want. If you don't want to work a 9 to 5 schedule, you don't have to, but then come up with hours that you do want to work. Can you work from 9 to 10 when your kids are off at school? Can you work in the evenings when things are a little bit quieter? Can you fit in an hour before you start your work day? Do you have time on the weekend to fit into your schedule? And so carving out hours, and then also having a plan, because this is another thing that happens, right? Is that people, okay, oh, I have my office hours. What am I doing? Right? And so creating a plan, and I can help you with this if you would like support with this, just DM me and we can book a strategy call together. Send me a DM now before you forget. But creating a plan for what you're actually going to focus on, so that you have something that gives you that structure to flow within. So I always talk about masculine and feminine energy as a river and the rocks. So your feminine energy is the river, and it's flowing freely. It is beautiful. It is sparkling. It is fresh. It is just so delicious. But if we don't have the river bend or the rocks to contain the river, then we have no river. It's going to be like a flood. Your feminine energy is going to be all over the place. So I understand that we live in a society that is so, I feel like just there's so much going on all the time. And also, is it of service to you and to your future business or your business, whatever level you're at? Is it of service to you to be spreading yourself thin and to be committing to all of these different things? And if it is, then that's great. But if not, then what do you need to do to be able to carve out time for you? I actually just had a conversation today with somebody who is thinking of hiring a VA, and we're going to hop on a call so I can help her kind of strategize next steps and like just get over that hump of, oh, because the first time you hire someone is scary, right? And I get that. I've been there a couple times. But what was I going to say? Right. So one of her obstacles is I'm just so busy. I'm too busy to hire somebody. And I was like, and also that busyness is never going to stop. If you don't carve out the time for the shit that is important to you, then you are never going to have the time to do that thing because your calendar just constantly gets filled with other things. So understanding what your priorities are, what your focus is, and you don't have to do everything all at once. Pick a couple of things, 1 to 2 or 3 things to focus on, and put your time and energy there and continue to plant that seed and grow and evolve. Another block that can come up is worthiness. Like, am I going to give my clients the results that they want? That's a really big one as well. What if people can't afford to pay me? And all of these other things that come up when we need to do something, take that next step in our business. So if you are someone that you know that you have to do something, you know you have to launch a product or program, you've got to put a freebie out there, you know that, I don't know, maybe you've got to raise your rates, but you're just avoiding, like other things are showing up, other things are distracting you. You create reasons, you feel tired, you just can't seem to show up for the thing that you know you have to do, then I'm going to say that there's probably some sort of block there. And my Own Your Intuition workshop can help you to start to see what blocks are coming up for you, because we don't just focus on owning your intuition. We also focus on what is preventing you from hearing your intuition and what is getting in your way from moving forward. A lot of that work is mindset, and you will get a workbook with journaling prompts to support you with self-reflection and navigating that process. So if you are noticing that you are avoiding or that you just aren't really taking the steps forward that you need, then definitely get in on the Own Your Intuition workshop. And if you are ready to take a deeper look at what is holding you back from creating success your way, whether that's in a career or your business, then you are going to want to get on the waitlist for Rise Goddess. This is a group coaching program that I created. It is my most popular program. It is a program that I hold really near and dear to my heart. It is a beautiful program, and I often actually hold myself back from launching this program because it is such a vulnerable and pure space. It's very transformational, and there can be a lot of things that come up for us mindset wise, worthiness wise, and all of these other fears that we have when we are doing something that is maybe a little bit different than the mainstream, and when we are actually putting our heart out on the line for people to see. And so I just want to say that because you're not alone in your journey, and if I can support you in any way, please let me know. But if you are ready to stop procrastinating and really start to tune into what it is that you need to do, what you are being called to do, and learn how to use your intuition to co-create with the universe so that you can create success your way, then get on the waitlist for Rise Goddess. We will be launching soon. I would absolutely love to support you in that space if it is the right space for you at this time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode today. Remember to share this episode with a friend or a colleague if you found it helpful, and definitely leave me a review. I would love to read the review out loud on my next podcast episode and give you a shout out. I appreciate any feedback that I get from the podcast. It helps me to continue making content for you. And it helps me to just know that this work is a good investment of my time and energy. And I do love podcasting. So if you appreciated this episode, don't hesitate to reach out. I would absolutely love to receive your feedback. I love you. I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll chat soon.